Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of what-if bedtime theories, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. Tonight we wander into a question that rests at the very foundation of Adventure Time's world. What if the Mushroom War never happened? That catastrophic event, part nuclear holocaust, part mysterious magical upheaval, is the hidden spark that reshaped the Earth into the land of Oo. It's the silent thread connecting so much of the series: the ruined cities, the absence of human, the rise of candy people, the birth of magic itself. Without that war, the world would have looked very different. So close your eyes, breathe deep, and imagine with me a gentle, alternate world unfold, where the sky is never filled with smoke, where the rivers never boiled with fallout, where life continued as it always had. We would begin in the human world. The Earth, in this vision, remains whole. Cities thrive, glowing with lights at night, humming with chatter and footsteps and laughter. Cars still trace their ribbons of road. Trains carry passengers across continents, and the buzz of technology continues, endless rhythm. Humanity has not been brought to its knees. Instead, it stretches onward, inventing, discovering, expanding. In this softer dream, young Simon Petrikov never stumbles through a wasteland to find Marceline. Instead, he is simply a scholar, a gentle man of knowledge. Perhaps he lectures at universities, spends his days studying artifacts, writes papers that are debated in academic halls rather than whispered about in desperate ruin. His discovery of the crown may still happen, but in this telling, the urgency of war does not push him to wear it. He remains simply Simon, eccentric but kind, a figure who never fractures into Ice King. Marceline herself changes most of all. Without the Mushroom War, she does not begin life wandering through smoke and shadows, clutching her toy Hambo as the world collapses around her. She grows up different. Perhaps she never meets Simon at all. Perhaps she never even needs him. Raised in a more stable world, she might still struggle with her vampiric nature. But her pain would not be shaped by loss on such a cosmic scale. Instead, her music might echo teenage rebellion, heartbreak, the restless spirit of youth, not the desperate cry of a child trying to survive in the ashes of the world. And what of Princess Bubblegum? In the world we know, she is born of candy matter in the aftermath of devastation, a scientist who builds her own kingdom from the ruins. But if humanity continued, if no vacuum was left behind for magic to fill, Bonnabelle Bubblegum might never come to be at all. Or, if she did, she might exist in secret, a strange creation, tucked away in a laboratory, perhaps never finding a reason to step forward and lead. In this version of Earth, she is not a princess of candy citizens, but maybe a curiosity locked in some research facility, one creation among many. It is strange to think of Oo without the Candy Kingdom, without the gumdrop soldiers, the peppermint butlers, the gentle chaos of lemon hope and cinnamon bun. A world where no magic arose to shape kingdoms of ice, fire, or candy. A world where science marched on, but fantasy never returned. Finn the human, our beloved hero, also may never have been born. The very conditions that allowed him to rise the extinction of humanity, the strange gap left behind for one child to become the last human, are erased. Without the war, humanity survives. Finn is not alone. He is not raised to think of himself as the one bright hero of the age. He might be just another boy in a bustling city, growing up with friends, going to school, never knowing the weight of destiny. The bond he shared with Jake, born from adventuring across a strange, magical land, might never form at all. And Jake himself, the magical dog, might never exist. For Jake's powers come from these strange, mutating energies released after the Mushroom War. Without the destruction, he is simply a normal dog, curled happily in a house somewhere, wagging his tail at the sound of his owner's footstep. No stretchy limbs, no adventures across kingdom, no destiny, just a loyal pet, living a peaceful life. This alternate world feels both gentler and emptier. There is no ice king bumbling through towers of snow, no bubblegum castle filled with candy life, no vampire queen singing her heartache into the night. The bright, strange kingdoms of Ooh do not rise from the ashes. There is only humanity, carrying forward as it always has, inventing machines, exploring the stars, building cities that shine brighter and brighter until the night sky grows dim from their lights. And here we find a bedtime paradox. Without the mushroom war, the earth avoids tragedy, avoids pain, but it also avoids transformation. The surreal and magical beauty of Ooh never arrive. There are no kingdoms to explore, no cosmic battles to fight, no whimsical creatures to meet. Adventure time, as we know it, would never have unfolded. So we ask ourselves softly, is this world better or worse? A world without destruction, but also without wonder. A world where people live longer, but never see talking candy or watch mountains move. As we drift further into this what if, the dream deepens. Imagine walking the streets of this world. You pass cafes where humans laugh over coffee. Scientists scribble notes in their labs. Children run through playgrounds under the sun. No gumdrop armies march. No tree houses perch on grassy hills. No lich slumbers beneath the ground. Everything is calmer, safer, but quieter. And when you close your eyes in this fable, you notice what's missing, the spark, the strange alchemy of magic and apocalypse, the way loss and ruin created beauty and strangeness in its wake. In this alternate story, there is no land of Ooh. There is only earth, familiar, safe, steady, and yet somehow less alive. Picture the sky in this untouched earth. It is still filled with satellites, signals passing between continents, weather balloons drifting slowly above the clouds. There are no shards of shattered magic piercing the heavens, no faint hum of Golb's chaotic energy lingering at the edges of existence. The stars are quiet pinpricks of light, unchallenged by strange constellations or cosmic entities. Humanity looks to them with telescopes and dreams of travel, but never with the fear that something ancient might already be looking back. In this gentler imagining, let us follow Simon Petrikov a little further. Without the apocalypse to twist his fate, he may never meet Marceline at all. Their bond, one of the most tender and heartbreaking in the canon timeline, is erased before it begins. Marceline remains the daughter of Hunson Abadir, growing up in a complicated, fractured family, but not in a world of devastation. She still wrestles with her dual identity, part demon, part vampire, part child longing for normalcy. Yet in this world she has people around her, society around her. Her loneliness is sharper in a different way. Instead of surviving in empty ruins, she feels out of place among crowds of humans who do not understand her. And Simon, without the crown, without the desperate choice to save a child in the rubble, he grows older in peace. Perhaps he writes about ancient myths. Perhaps he becomes a mentor at universities, remembered for his eccentric kindness. He dies a man of science, mourned by colleagues, but never immortalized as the Ice King. His name does not echo in the halls of Ooh, because Ooh never comes to be. His tragedy vanishes, but so does his legend. What of the vampires? In Ooh, Marceline becomes their bane, the slayer of the undead who roam freely after the war breaks down natural order. But in this quiet earth, the vampire king and his brood remain hidden. Perhaps they linger in shadowed corners of the world, hunted by humans in secret, not rising to dominance. Without the ruins of the war, they are just another myth whispered about in dark taverns, another superstition that humanity brushes aside. Marceline never becomes their destroyer. She is only a girl who learns to survive in her own way. Not a queen, not a hero. The story of Princess Bubblegum grows stranger still. In O, she is born from candy biomass, her kingdom a scientific miracle, in a world where magic and mutation merge. In a world without apocalypse, she might never exist. But if she does, it may be because a curious scientist engineered her as an experiment, a living being grown in a laboratory tank. Imagine her behind glass, her pink form suspended in fluid, watched by white-coated scientists who never think of her as more than research. Perhaps one day she awakened, confused, and lonely, surrounded not by candies, but by sterile walls and curious eyes. She's never crowned a princess. She never rules. She is a subject, not a sovereign. Her kingdom is reduced to a single room filled with blinking monitors. This bedtime imagining drifts further into absence. The Fire Kingdom never forms without magical mutation. There is no flame princess to rage against injustice, no fiery monarch burning with passion and power. The Ice Kingdom never rises from Simon's madness, so no lonely castles of frozen towers gleam against the sky. The Nightosphere remains distant, a realm of demons disconnected from Earth's story. Even the Lich, born of the Great War's toxic energy, never awaken. The ultimate evil sleeps forever, never emerging to spread death. And yet, in this emptiness, there is also peace. People live longer, safer lives. They have families, grow old, pass their stories on not through ruins and ruins again, but through books, films, and song. Children laugh in playgrounds rather than cower in bunkers. Farmers plant crops in clean soil, not tainted earth. Lovers watch sunsets without the glow of radiation staining the horizon. But Adventure Time itself does not exist here. For what is Adventure Time without the land of Ooh? Without heroes born of ruin? Without creatures twisted into wonder by the aftermath of tragedy? It is as though the storybook itself is missing from the shelf, the pages never written because the ink was never spilled. Still, in this dream, we can wander a little deeper. Let us walk with Finn, or rather, the boy who might have been Finn. In the true timeline, he is the last human child, raised in a magical land where every day calls him toward destiny. But here, in this alternate telling, he is only a boy among many. Perhaps he lives in a city apartment with a mother and father who love him. Perhaps he goes to school, plays sports, reads comic books. He dreams of being a hero, but the world around him does not need one. He does not wake each morning to quests and adventures, but to ordinary chores and classes. He becomes just another thread in the tapestry of human life. Jake, in his imagining, lies beside him as a normal dog. He stretches his paws, but not his limbs. He wags his tail, but never grows into the playful, wise, and magical brother we know. Their bond is still warm, the boy and his dog, but it never shapes the fate of kingdoms. It is personal, not legendary. And though their days are peaceful, something in this bedtime world feels quieter, as if a song was never sung. As you drift with this fable, notice how absence feels. The Mushroom War was a tragedy, yes, but from its ashes rose the strangeness, the wonder, the fantasy of you. Remove the war, and you remove the spark. It is a world both safer and duller. It is a bedtime story that soothes but does not ignite. In the land of Ooh, we know the Mushroom War acted as a strange turning point, the end of one world and the birth of another. It was more than just destruction. It was transformation. The old laws of reality, the firm grip of science, gave way to something softer and stranger. Mutated life, walking candy, talking animal, the reawakening of primordial magic. The end and the beginning intertwine. But in this what if, without that ending, there is no transformation. The laws of the universe remain steady, predictable, almost too reliable. Humanity, with all its cleverness, marches forward without pause. Technology advances year by year. Perhaps humanity spreads to the stars or dives deeper into artificial intelligence. Perhaps machines grow stronger, cities grow larger, and the natural world is reshaped under the constant press of human hand. Oh, what never returns, though, is wonder. The kind of wonder that makes a candy person walk or an ancient vampire sing beneath the moon. Without the Mushroom War, the story remains grounded. It stays close to the earth, tethered to rules, logic, and science. There are no stretches of dreamlike logic where forests sing or snail spirits wave at the audience. The universe loses that odd shimmer, that delicate balance between nightmare and lullaby. And so one might say that the Mushroom War was both curse and gift. A curse because it ended lives and toppled civilization, but a gift because it allowed something stranger to bloom. A reminder, softly whispered, that endings are not always endings alone. They can also be doors. Consider again Simon and Marceline. Their bond is one of the most cherished in all of Adventure Time. precisely because it is born from ruin. A child lost in the ashes, a man losing himself to madness. They find each other, and in the hollow of disaster, create love. Without the Mushroom War, they never meet. They never need each other in the same way. Their story is erased. The Ice King never exists, yes, but neither does the heartbreaking poetry of Simon's sacrifice. A world without pain is also a world without that bittersweet beauty. Or look to Finn, the boy who, in Ooh, grows into a hero, battling monsters, befriending kings, staring into cosmic mystery. He becomes a symbol of bravery because he is tested by strangeness. He lives in a land where destiny hums in the air, where every cave hides a secret, where every foe challenges his heart as much as his sword. Without the Mushroom War, he is simply a boy among millions, safe, ordinary, untested. He may live a longer life, but not a legendary one. His song is never sung because the stage was never built. The balance between science and magic is one of Adventure Time's quiet themes. In the timeline we know, science is broken by the war, and magic slips back in to take its place. Ooh is neither one nor the other. It is not a world of laboratories alone, nor of fairy kingdoms alone. It is a mixture melted together by catastrophe. Without the Mushroom War, science never faltered. Humanity never loosened its grip, and so the world becomes sharp, mechanical, efficient. But it lacks softness. It lacks that odd dreamlike quality where science and sorcery dance together under the same sun. Even the very landscapes shift in this imagining. In Ooh, mountains are jagged, rivers glow with strange colors, forests breathe with hidden spirits. Without the war, the Earth's geography remains familiar. Skyscrapers instead of ice towers, highways instead of enchanted forests, oceans filled with ships, not kingdoms beneath the waves. It is our world, extended forward, not a new one born from fire. Now imagine the great cosmic being. Hunson Abadir, Lord of the Nightosphere, might never involve himself with Earth at all. Without Ooh, his presence lingers only faintly, a whisper from another realm. The Lich, born from the deathly energy of the mushroom bomb, never awakens. The ultimate evil is silenced before it can rise. Golb, too, may remain distant. Perhaps Earth never even brushes against that cosmic force. Without Ooh's magical rebirth, the barriers between dimensions remain firm. Humanity lives and dies within its own walls, never catching glimpses of the chaos beyond. To some, this world might seem safer. No Lich to destroy, no Golb to swallow, no curses to break. But in that safety comes stillness. No Ice King to make us laugh and break our hearts. No Marceline to sing her lonely songs. No Finn to remind us that bravery can bloom in anyone. The stories vanish. And bedtime in this world might feel quiet, but almost too quiet, as though nothing waits to surprise us. This raises a soft bedtime lesson, one that hums beneath the fable. Sometimes beauty grows from ruin. Sometimes the strangest, most magical things are born from endings we never would have chosen. The land of Ooh, with all its wonders and heartbreaks, could only exist because something else ended first. Take away the war, and you take away the land itself. As you rest in this imagining, picture yourself standing at a crossroad. To the left, a world untouched, safe, steady, human. To the right, a world scarred, broken, but reborn into something magical. Which road feels kinder? Which feels more alive? The answer shifts, depending on how you listen. For those who seek safety, the warless world is a lullaby. For those who seek wonder, Ooh's world is the dream. And perhaps that is the hidden truth of Adventure Time. The tragedy and beauty are often woven together, inseparable threads in the same tapestry. And so when we ask, what if the Mushroom War never happened, we are really asking, would we trade wonder for safety? Would we trade the extraordinary for the ordinary? Would we give up oh in exchange for Earth's long, steady hum? As we drift deeper into this dream, the contrast between the two worlds becomes clearer. On one hand, a warless Earth, untouched by fallout, calm and steady in its familiar rhythm. On the other, the scarred but wondrous land of Ooh, bursting with magic, adventure, and voices that could only rise from ruin. Imagine walking through the streets of this alternate Earth again. The glow of streetlights hums above your head, warm and artificial. Cafes spill music into the evening air, and families gather in living rooms where the soft light of televisions flickers across their faces. The world feels safe, predictable. There are no candy people to surprise you, no lich-born shadows lurking beneath the soil. It is the kind of world where sleep is undisturbed, where the greatest bedtime story is one of ordinary life. But now, close your eyes and shift the vision. Picture the land of Ooh as it truly exists in the timeline we know. Rolling hills dotted with candy homes, a tree house that stands tall against the sky, filled with laughter, weapons, and stories. A fire kingdom glowing like a furnace in the distance. An ice crown glittering from lonely peaks. A vampire queen strumming a bass under the moon. It is dangerous, yes. Strange, yes. But it is alive with something that cannot exist without the spark of change. This contrast speaks softly to us as we lie in bed and let the story wash over. It tells us that safety and wonder rarely grow in the same soil. That sometimes, only after the old world crumbles can something truly new appear. That while destruction is tragic, it can also carve out the space for renewal. Now imagine yourself in the place of Finn. Had the Mushroom War never happened, you would be surrounded by other humans, blending into the sea of ordinary life. No destiny tugging you forward. No enchanted lands calling your name. Your dog, Jake, would be ordinary too, bounding happily, but never stretching into shapes beyond reason. Together, you would share love and companionship, but not legend. You would grow and live and pass on safe, but unseen. And yet, in the timeline we know, Finn becomes more than himself. Because he is the last human, because he grows in a land scarred by war, he shines brighter. His courage matters more. Every choice echoes louder. Every friend becomes part of a world that should not exist, but does. A boy becomes a hero not in spite of tragedy, but because of it. Simon and Marceline, too, whispered their lesson. Without the Mushroom War, their paths never cross in the way we love. Simon grows old in peace. Marceline grows up with the complexities of family, but not the terror of apocalypse. They live, but their bond never forms. It is the war's very cruelty that forges their connection. It is the ashes of the old world that give us the most heartbreaking and beautiful story of all. And Princess Bubblegum, without the war, perhaps she never ruled, never becomes the careful, calculating leader we know. She may never build her candy kingdom, never grapple with morality and power. She might be a curiosity in a laboratory, not a monarch in a pink palace. The Mushroom War takes so much away, but it also gives her a stage. It gives her a people to protect. It makes her a queen in ways ordinary life never could. So as we consider this what if, we notice a quiet truth. The Mushroom War, for all its horror, gave birth to Ooh. It birthed the very possibility of adventure time. To imagine a world without it is to imagine a world without the story we love, a bedtime without its tale, a night without its dream. This reflection is not meant to celebrate destruction. It is not to say that war is good. Rather, it is to notice how stories often rise from ending, how even in ashes, life can grow into something unexpected. Adventure Time is, in many ways, a reminder that tragedy and wonder can be woven together, and that even the darkest past can give rise to the brightest adventures. So what if the Mushroom War never happened? The Earth would be safe. Humanity would endure. The skies would remain clear of fallout. The soil would remain unscarred. But Ooh would never awaken. The heroes would never rise. The songs would never be sung. It would be a world with fewer tears, yes, but also a world with fewer wonder. And that is the heart of this bedtime fable, that sometimes, even in loss, there is a strange gift. The beauty can bloom in places we least expect. The destruction and creation, though opposite, are often two halves of the same story. As you rest in this thought, let the two visions drift side by side. One, a safe earth filled with ordinary lights and ordinary lives. The other, a magical land where candy sings, where vampires love, where heroes fight, and where cosmic beings loom just beyond the veil of stars. Both are real in their own way, and both could have been. But only one gave us the story we know, the lullaby we sing tonight. Close your eyes for a moment, and let us turn the page to another path. Imagine the Mushroom War still burning across the earth. The skies still darken with fire. The cities still fall into ruin. But when the smoke clears and the centuries pass, there is no return of magic to fill the silence. The land of Ooh never bloomed. Instead, only the long echo of destruction remains. The earth in this story is hushed. Its landscapes are scarred and broken, but nothing strange or whimsical grows from the wounds. The rivers are poisoned, the forests thin and skeletal. Buildings stand like hollow bones of giants, their windows empty, their steel rusting. No candy people walk in the streets, no animals. There are no kingdoms of fire or slime or candy to bring color back to the world. There is only the ruin left behind and the human survivor who pick through the dust. Picture Finn here, if he were ever born into such a world. Instead of a boy destined for adventure, he is simply a child of the wasteland. His laughter is quiet, his joy subdued, because the land offers him little but survival. He carries no sword, only scraps, scavenged from broken homes. His dreams are not of heroism, but of finding clean water, safe shelter, a patch of food untouched by radiation. The sparkle in his eyes that in Ooh shines so brightly would dim beneath the weight of this bleak inheritance. And Jake, the dog who stretches across kingdom in the timeline we know, would never be more than ordinary. Without magical, mutagenic energy, his powers never manifest. He remains a loyal companion, yes, but his role is smaller. He does not leap into battle, does not reshape himself into shields or bridges or wings. He is simply a dog at Finn's side, warm in the cold nights, a friend in silence. Their bond is still tender, but it never transforms into legend. Let us walk further into this alternate world. Marceline, eternal as a vampire, still survives the century. She drifts through the ruins, her bass guitar slung across her shoulder, her voice echoing in the empty chambers of fallen skyscraper. But she has no audience. There are no candy people to tease, no friends to band together with. Her songs echo only for the broken walls and the shadow. Without magic to warp and twist the landscape, the world feels still, stagnant, barren. Marceline's immortality becomes less a gift and more a heavy chain, binding her to a world that refuses to heal. And what of Simon Petrikov? The crown still exists. In this timeline, the Mushroom War pushes him to desperation. He dons the crown to protect himself, perhaps even to save Marceline if their paths cross. But without the resurgence of magic to shape the land, his icy powers feel strangely out of place. He becomes a wandering relic, a frozen king without a kingdom. His madness grows, his humanity cracks, but there is no colorful Ooh to bear witness. He is a ghost, haunting ruins, his cries swallowed by empty city streets. Princess Bubblegum, in this story, may never even come to life. Without magic's return, there is no bubbling of candy matter into sentience. She is not born from sugar and science. She never leads armies of candy people, never builds a kingdom. The balance of Ooh's politics and kingdoms simply never exists. There are no kingdoms at all, only scattered groups of human survivors clinging to small fires in the dark. It is a world of silence, a bedtime fable without music. For in Adventure Time, magic is the breath that turns ruins into wonder. Without it, there is no humor, no whimsy, no surprises. The land remains a graveyard, not a playground. The apocalypse wins and nothing rises in its place. And yet, as you let this image rest in your thoughts, there is something hauntingly poetic about it. The world carries its scars and they never fade. The survivors tell stories of the world before, not of kingdoms born after. Children grow up in shadow, listening to their elders speak of lights that once filled the sky, of song once filled the air. They never know what it is to see candy citizens march or to watch fire and ice clash in the open. They inherit only the memory of what was lost. The great cosmic forces, too, remain untouched. The Lich in this world may never awaken. His birth is tied to the strange energies of the mushroom bomb. But without magic's return, he never stirs from the earth. Golb remains distant, a name never whispered, for the thin veil between worlds is never weakened. Even Hunson Abadir may watch from afar, uninterested in a realm so devoid of magic's spark. This bedtime vision feels heavy, almost suffocating in its quietness. The earth breathes still but slowly. It does not dance with Candy Kingdom or glittering crowns. It does not echo with the laughter of adventurers. It is a world that endured destruction, but never found renewal. And so we see another paradox. In the first fable, where the Mushroom War never came, the world was safe but ordinary. In this one, the war comes, but it leaves only emptiness. Without magic, destruction offers no gift, no rebirth. It is only destruction, plain and final. Let us linger with Finn a little longer in this world. Imagine him standing on the edge of a ruined city. The skyscrapers rise like broken teeth against the horizon, their glass long since shattered, their bones hollowed by time. He wears not a hero's cap, but a scavenger's cloak, patched and torn. In one hand, he clutches a stick sharpened into a spear, its wood brittle, its tip burned black. This is not the weapon of a knight, but the tool of survival. His eyes search the rubble for signs of life, but the silence answers him more often than laughter. In this story, Finn grows strong, but in a different way. Not through battles with monsters, but through these small victories of endurance. Each day he rises, finds food, protects his loved ones, and survives another night. He learns bravery not from facing leeches or cosmic beasts, but from protecting others against hunger, cold, and the desperate anger of fellow humans. His courage is quieter, humbler, but no less real. Yet it is not the kind of courage that becomes legend. It is the courage that lives and dies within the ruins, remembered only by a few. Jake follows him faithfully, but he is no magical brother. He is a dog, plain and true, his golden fur dulled by dust. He does not stretch across rivers or transform into shields. He curls up beside Finn at night, sharing warmth. He barks to warn of danger. He digs through rubble with his paws. He is loyal, steadfast, and loving, but never extraordinary. And maybe in its own way, that is beautiful too. In a world stripped of magic, the loyalty of a dog shines even brighter, like a candle in a darkened room. Now think of Marceline, wandering through this lifeless world. In Ooh, her songs echo over kingdoms, finding listeners who understand her loneliness. Here her voice drifts into ruins, unanswered. She plays her bass atop crumbling towers, her chords haunting the empty air. She has eternity, but eternity in silence is heavy. Her songs turn into laments, not just for her own heartbreak, but for a world that never found rebirth. She becomes a ghost of music, her melodies stitched into the hollow places of earth, carried only by the wind. Simon, too, becomes a different figure here. The crown still presses its weight upon him. He still uses it to survive the war's aftermath, to shield himself in moments of terror. But in a world without magic, his transformation feels even more tragic. He does not become a king of ice ruling a whimsical kingdom. He becomes a mad wanderer, shuffling through ruins, his mind splintered, his power unmatched but purposeless. He freezes halls of empty buildings, sculptures of frost glittering in places where no one will ever see them. His tragedy is quieter, lonelier. Without Ooh to reflect his madness, he fades into obscurity, his story forgotten by all but Marceline, who watches him slip further away. The world itself resists change in this imagining. Forests grow back slowly, but they are twisted, dry, and silent. Animals scavenge, but none speak. The oceans remain polluted, tides carrying wreckage instead of song. The sky clears, but it is pale, empty, without the shimmer of magical auroras. Life endures, but it does not transform. It is as though the earth has been locked in mourning, unable to move beyond the war that scarred it. Humans survive in small clusters, hidden in bunkers, eking out lives in broken towns. They pass down stories of the world before, tales of airplanes and electricity, of concerts and celebration. Their children grow up not with dreams of adventure, but with the simple wish of clean food and safe shelter. The imagination narrows in such a world. Where Ooh's children dream of quests and kingdoms, these children dream only of survival. Their lullabies are quiet, sung by tired voices around fires, carrying hope for a better tomorrow that never seems to arrive. Even the villains of Ooh vanish in this story. The Lich never rises without magic's strange influence. The great kingdoms never clash, for they are never born. The cosmic forces remain distant, uninterested in a land so barren. And so the world is left without both heroes and villains, without triumphs or tragedy on a grand scale. What remains is survival alone, stripped of the mythic. This version of Earth, though bleak, whispers its own lesson. It tells us that destruction without renewal is emptiness, that endings without beginnings leave silence in their wake. It is a world where the fire of the mushroom war burns everything, and nothing grows from the ashes. As you rest with this image, you may notice how heavy it feels compared to the first fable. When the war never happened, the world was safe, ordinary, almost too steady. Here, the war happens, but it gives nothing back. The world remains scarred and hollow. It is not steady, not wondrous, only tired. And that, in its own way, is the darkest dream of all. In the world of Ooh as we know it, there is a strange comfort in its chaos. Yes, kingdoms clash, villains rise, and cosmic horrors lurk at the edges. But there is always music, color, and the possibility of surprise. In the wasteland without magic, there is no such comfort. The silence is unbroken. The ruins remain ruined. And humanity is left to wander in a story that never shifts its tone. It becomes clear, as we wander deeper into this imagining, that Adventure Time itself could never exist in such a place. For Adventure Time is a tale not only of survival, but of renewal. It is a bedtime song about how wonder can grow from loss, how laughter can echo even after ruin. Without magic's return, there are no adventures to be had. There are only long, slow days of endurance. Think of the symbolism here. The mushroom war represents destruction. Magic's return represents creation. Together they form the cycle of endings and beginnings, of loss and rebirth. To have one without the other breaks the balance. A world with no war at all, as we dreamed in the first fable, is safe but stagnant. A world with war but no rebirth, as we see now, is broken and hollow. Only together do the two forces create something as strange and alive as Ooh. Finn and Jake's absence as heroes in this world is not just the loss of character. It is the loss of hope embodied. Finn in Ooh is the child who proves that courage is not about strength, but about the willingness to act. Jake is the reminder that friendship can stretch farther than we think, that love can take on endless shapes. Without magic, they are diminished, stripped down to survival role. Their warmth still exists, but their ability to inspire is taken away. It is as if the universe forgot to give them the stage. Marceline, too, tells us something in this quiet version of Earth. Her songs in Ooh resonate because they are sung against the backdrop of kingdoms and magic. They are laments and celebrations woven into a vibrant world that can hear her. In this wasteland, her voice is swallowed by silence. She becomes the ultimate symbol of loneliness, an eternal being in a world that never answers. Her music lingers, but with no one to hear it, it becomes a private grief, not a shared comfort. And Simon, wandering as a frozen shadow, reveals another truth. His tragedy is one of purpose. In Ooh, his madness creates chaos, but it also gives rise to story. He becomes a king, a figure whose presence shapes the lives of others. His suffering, though tragic, becomes meaningful in the larger tapestry. Here he is simply lost. His powers carve ice into ruins that will melt unnoticed. His story never reaches anyone's ears. His pain exists, but without purpose. The landscapes themselves echo this theme. In Ooh, a forest is not just trees. It is a living space of talking animals, hidden secrets, and magic waiting to be discovered. In the wasteland without magic, a forest is only burned trunks and ash. In Ooh, a river might hide a water nymph, a kingdom beneath the surface, or an adventure waiting to begin. In the wasteland, the rivers are poison, carrying nothing but debris. The land itself becomes an unchanging backdrop, not a character. Adventure Time teaches us that the world is more than what it appears, that imagination and mystery live beneath the surface of every rock and tree. But in this what if, imagination is crushed. The survivors do not tell fairy tales to their children because no magic remains to suggest that such tales could ever be true. Their stories are not of candy kings or fire princesses, but of factories, cities, and machines long gone. Their lullabies are filled with longing for what was lost, not hope for what might be found. This is where the symbolism deepens. The wasteland without magic is not just a world of silence. It is a world without imagination. And without imagination, survival is empty. A bedtime story cannot live in such a place, for a bedtime story requires wonder. It requires possibility. It requires a spark that reminds us there is more to life than endurance. So when we think of this alternate world, we feel its heaviness in our bone. It is the kind of world that might let humanity continue, but without joy, without transformation. A world that survives but never thrives. And in its silence, it teaches us why ooh matters, why magic matters, why imagination matters. Because without those things, the world is only ruins and shadows. With them, the world is alive. With them, the ruins bloom into kingdom. The shadows give birth to song. The silence becomes filled with laughter and story. As you drift in this fable, imagine yourself lying on the ground this way. Above you, the stars shine, cold and indifferent. The air is quiet. No magical creatures wander past. No cosmic portals open. It is only you, the sky, and the long memory of a world that once burned. And now imagine lying beneath ooze stars where the constellations seem to hum, where cosmic beings drift just beyond sight, where every glimmer might hide a story. Both skies are filled with stars, but only one sings to you. And that is the secret this segment reveals. That magic is not just about spells or creatures. It is about meaning. It is about giving stories room to grow. Without it, the world is static. With it, the world is alive, even in its pain. As we near the end of this imagining, let us pause and feel the weight of this world once more. The war has ended, yes. The bombs have fallen. The skies have cleared, and life has crept back in patches. But without magic, the earth has not healed in spirit. It has only survived in body. Survival is important, but survival alone cannot sustain the heart. The survivors of this wasteland walk, eat, sleep, and rebuild, but they do not dream in the same way. Their stories are stripped of mystery. Their laughter is quieter. Their children look at the horizon, see only emptiness, not adventure. This is the inheritance of a world where war destroys, but creation never follows. And it makes us think softly about why Adventure Time resonates the way it does. At its heart, it is not only about surviving an apocalypse. It is about what comes after. About how life, in all its strange forms, finds a way to grow again. About how magic, whether literal or symbolic, is the spark that turns ruins into possibilities. Without that spark, Simon's tragedy is meaningless. Marceline's music is unheard. Finn's courage is unseen. Jake's loyalty is unremarkable. Princess Bubblegum is never born. The Lich never awakens. Golb never looms. The story never begins. The war leaves only silence. And yet, perhaps, even in this silence, there is a quiet lesson. It reminds us that destruction on its own is not enough. That pain without healing becomes despair. That endings to hold meaning must carry the possibility of new beginning. In the land of Ooh, we see this principle at play. The war ended one world, but it also birthed another. Without that balance, there can be no story, no adventure, no hope. Think for a moment of the forests of Ooh, bright, strange, filled with odd creatures and mysteries tucked into every corner. Those forests are alive because magic returned. Without it, the forests are only dead wood and tangled branches. And yet, even in imagining them lifeless, we begin to understand why their living form is so precious. It is contrast that makes us appreciate. Think, too, of the stars. In the wasteland, they are distant lights, cold and unreachable. In Ooh, they are portals, songs and guides. Some are beings themselves, whispering their secrets down to earth. The difference is not in the stars, but in the presence of magic that makes them more than they appear. This is the gift Ooh gives us, to see the world not only as it is, but as it could be. And so this fable rests on a paradox. Without the Mushroom War, the world was safe but ordinary. With the war but no magic, the world is scarred but barren. Only with both destruction and renewal do we find Ooh, with all its strange beauty. Only there do we find heroes, villains, songs, and dreams. It is not to say that war is good. No, the Mushroom War was a tragedy. But in the story we know, it became the soil from which magic sprouted. And in that mixture of pain and possibility, a new world was born. That is why Adventure Time feels both whimsical and haunting, because it is built on both ruin and wonder, inseparable, forever intertwined. So as we close our eyes tonight and let this vision fade, we can hold its lesson gently. that a world without renewal is a world without story, that survival without imagination is not enough, that even in endings we must search for beginning. Picture, one last time, the two versions of the earth. One, the silent wasteland, with humans wandering through ruins, their songs hushed, their dreams small. The other, the land of Oo, where those same ruins have given way to kingdoms of candy and fire, to adventures that stretch beyond stars. Both were born from the same war. One chose silence, the other chose song. And perhaps that is the quiet truth hidden within these bedtime theories, that the spark of magic is not only in crowns or candy or demons, but in the choice to create meaning after loss. Ooh is what happens when imagination answers destruction. The wasteland is what happens when it does not. Let us turn the page again, sleepyheads, and wander into another what if. This time our question is simple but powerful. What if Simon Petrikov never wore the crown? In the story we know, Simon's discovery of the crown changes everything. It pulls him down into madness, warps his mind, and steals his humanity even as it grants him icy power. That one choice, that one desperate act, shapes not only his life, but the entire history of Oo. Without the Ice King, the world would feel very different. But imagine with me, softly, a different path. Simon finds the crown, yes. Perhaps he still uncovers it in some dusty market, still feels the strange pull of its gems. But in this telling, he never places it upon his head. He studies it, locks it away, perhaps fears it too much to ever risk its power. He remains Simon Petrikov, the kind-hearted scholar, the eccentric man with glasses and gentle hand. Now think of Marceline. In the timeline we know, Simon and Marceline meet in the ruins of the war. He protects her, becomes a guardian, even as the crown begins to consume him. Their bond is forged in fire and tragedy. But here, if Simon never wears the crown, he remains himself. He is still mortal. He still grows older. He cannot promise her eternity. He can only promise her the love and care of a man doing his best to protect a child in the aftermath of chaos. This bond, in some ways, may be even more heartbreaking, because Simon, without the crown, is free of madness. He does not push Marceline away with confused rants or cold obsessions. He does not forget her name. He does not lose himself. He is her guardian in full, clear, and present. She grows up loved, guided, and comforted by a man who never leaves her heart. But the cost of this love is time. For Simon is mortal, and time does not forgive. Imagine Marceline as she matures. She is eternal, but he is not. She watches as Simon grows older, his hair silvering, his body slowing. She sings for him, stays by his side, but she knows their time is limited. One day he will fade, and she will remain. Their bond will not shatter in madness, but in mortality. And that, in its way, is a quieter tragedy. To lose someone not to magic, but to the simple passing. And what of the Ice King? In this story, he never comes to be. The towers of frozen loneliness never rise. The bumbling, tragic king who kidnaps princesses and longs for love is erased from the stage. At first, this might sound like a relief. No madness, no heartbreak, no lonely cries echoing through Oo. But in removing the Ice King, we also remove the strange, bittersweet charm he brought to the tale. We lose the constant reminder that even villains can be broken heroes in disguise. Princess Bubblegum's life, too, shifts in this imagining. Without the Ice King to meddle, to steal her away, to clash with her kingdom, her rule may become steadier. The Candy Kingdom may grow without interruption, its people safe from icy intrusions. Yet something is missing. The challenges Simon once posed forced her to adapt, to harden, to grow. Without him, her story is less complex, her path less layered. And Finn, our hero, never meets the strange man in blue robes who tests his patience and, in time, his compassion. He never learns that beneath the crown's madness lies a broken heart. He never discovers the deeper lesson, that even the most frustrating people may hide sorrow in their soul. Finn's journey becomes lighter, yes, but it is also emptier. The very tone of Oo changes in this bedtime imagining. Without the Ice King, there is no constant presence of loneliness and madness weaving through the story. Oo loses one of its sharpest contrasts, the mixture of comedy and tragedy embodied in Simon's fate. The land is still strange, still magical, but it lacks that voice calling out from frozen towers, that echo what it means to lose oneself in the name of love. As we let this story drift, we begin to see its lesson. By refusing the crown, Simon preserves himself, preserves his bond with Marceline, and avoids madness. But in doing so, he also erases a great deal of the wonder and sorrow that shaped Oo. His life is longer in peace, but shorter in legend. He remains human, and then he is gone. This fable feels softer, more tender. A story of love preserved but finite. A story without the madness of ice, but also without its poetry. And it reminds us that sometimes the choices that protect us from pain also shield us from meaning. If we follow the flow of this story further, we begin to notice the ripples of Simon's choice stretching across the whole of Oo. The absence of the Ice King does not leave a gap of silence alone. It reshapes the balance of kingdoms, friendships, and destiny. Consider Marceline again. In the timeline we know, so much of her identity is tied to Simon's sacrifice. She carries both the memory of his love and the wound of his loss. His madness defines her childhood, and her music becomes a vessel for that pain. Without the crown, their bond is different. Marceline grows with Simon fully present, steady, and sane. Her songs may still hold longing, for she is eternal, and he is not. But they are not born from betrayal or confusion. They are softer, gentler, the kind of songs written in remembrance rather than in anger. Perhaps her music takes on a new quality, not laments of a guardian, lost to madness, but odes to a man who loved her until the end of his mortal life. She might wander Oo still, but with different chords beneath her voice. Her songs would not cry out against the injustice of fate, but instead carry the warmth of memory, like lullabies sung to her in the long nights. The people of Oo would know Marceline as a queen of the night, yes, but not as the daughter of tragedy. They would hear her music and think of love that ended naturally, rather than love that was twisted and torn away. The sadness would still be there, but it would be of a different kind. The sadness of time itself, the sadness of watching years slip away when you cannot follow. Now look toward Princess Bubblegum and her candy kingdom. Without the Ice King, her throne is never shaken by his icy tantrum. He does not storm her castle, does not steal her away, does not test her patience with his unpredictable obsession. Her rule is smoother, her politics simpler. Yet in a way, this makes her reign colder. Without that persistent nuisance, she hardens in different ways. The Ice King, for all his flaws, reminded Bubblegum of unpredictability, of the need to stay alert, of the fragility of control. Without him, she becomes a ruler with fewer distractions, but perhaps fewer reminders of humanity, too. And Finn. His growth is perhaps the most strikingly altered. Without Simon's story to discover, without the painful realization that the Ice King was once a kind man broken by the crown, Finn's understanding of compassion is shallower. He still learns bravery, still learns friendship, still learns sacrifice. But he never has to face the paradox of loving someone who frustrates him, who hurts others, yet who hides a broken soul beneath it all. It is in Ice King's bumbling madness that Finn learns some of his deepest lessons. He learns that not all villains are villains at heart. He learns that people can be trapped by forces beyond their control. He learns that kindness can reach even those who seem far gone. Without the Ice King, Finn's world lacks that challenge. And though he may still become a hero, his wisdom is narrower, his compassion less tested. Even the balance of Oo's story shifts. The Ice King, for all his silliness, provided a thread of loneliness that wove through the entire tapestry. His kidnappings of princesses were not only comedic interruptions, they were reminders of the aching void in his heart. His presence gave Oo both levity and sorrow, comedy and tragedy bound in one. Without him, the land loses one of its mirrors. The story of Oo becomes less layered, less contradictory, more straightforward. And yet Simon himself gains peace. He grows old as a man, not as a mad king. He dies remembered by Marceline, perhaps by a few others, as a gentle scholar who lived through the end of the old world. He does not leave towers of ice or pages of confusion. He leaves memory, steady and warm. His life is small, but it is free. This bedtime imagining leaves us with another paradox. In saving himself from madness, Simon also removes himself from legend. In keeping his humanity, he loses his myth. And ooh itself, though steadier, becomes flatter, less alive, without his strange blend of comedy and sorrow echoing across its kingdom. As we drift with this vision, we begin to ask ourselves, is peace always better than story? Is a quiet life always preferable to a broken one that leaves echoes across the world? There is no easy answer. But in thinking of Simon without the crown, we glimpse both the tenderness of love preserved and the emptiness of meaning lost. Let us step even wider now and imagine Ooh as a whole without the Ice King upon its map. His icy towers never rise, and his strange presence never looms across the kingdom. What happens, then, to the balance of this world? In the Ooh, we know the Ice King is more than a nuisance. He is a constant, a reminder of the cost of power, of the fragility of memory, of the loneliness that lingers even in a magical land. He is a villain and a victim, a figure both mocked and pitied. His story threads through countless adventures, sometimes as comic relief, sometimes as heartbreaking tragedy. Remove him, and Ooh's tapestry loses one of its brightest, strangest threads. The kingdoms shift in his absence. Without his abductions, the princesses live in greater peace. Bubblegum's armies are not deployed against his icy raids. Flame Princess never has to spar with him in fire and frost. Even the small, whimsical adventures where Finn and Jake march off to rescue a captive princess vanish from the tale. On the surface, Ooh becomes calmer, but beneath that calm lies a kind of hollowness. For many of the lessons the heroes learn about patience, about compassion, and about the hidden pain of others come directly from their encounters with the Ice King. Villains, too, shift in their roles. Without the Ice King, the darker forces of Ooh stand unopposed in a way that feels different. He was never the strongest or most terrifying, but his chaotic presence added unpredictability. His obsession with princesses, while troubling, kept him from focusing his power on greater destruction. Without him, the spotlight falls more heavily on other figures, the Vampire King, the Lich, Hunson, Abadir. Their stories might grow larger, their shadows longer, because there is no icy foil to balance them. And the Lich himself, that embodiment of death and finality, seems even more absolute in this world. For one of the most powerful lessons of Adventure Time comes in the contrast between the Lich and Simon. The Lich is destruction incarnate. Simon is humanity eroded by power. Together, they reveal different faces of loss. Without Simon's story, the Lich's dominance is more total. There is no reminder that even tragedy can hold tenderness, that even ruin can hide love. There is only the stark certainty of death. We might even say that without the Ice King, Ooh loses part of its soul. For Simon's fate is a mirror one that shows us that the greatest battles are not always fought with swords, but within the heart. His madness, though painful, speaks to us about memory, sacrifice, and the cost of love. Without it, Ooh becomes a land of kingdoms and quests, yes, but with less of that quiet depth. Now imagine Marceline centuries later in this version of the tale. She still walks the land, still plays her music, still searches for meaning in her eternity. But her grief is different. Instead of carrying the wound of Simon's madness, she carries the wound of his absence. She sings not of confusion, but of longing. Her music is softer, less jagged, but also less sharp in its sorrow. She remembers a man who stayed with her until the end, who never left her side in madness. The pain is still there, but it is the pain of time, not of loss twisted by magic. Finn in his journeys may hear of Simon as a man who once protected Marceline, a scholar who survived the war. He may even meet Marceline's memories woven into song, but he never sees the Ice King himself, never experiences that paradox of frustration and pity, never learns that even those who seem foolish may carry ancient wounds. His heart remains brave, but not as wise. His compassion remains strong, but not as tested. And yet, Simon's peace is undeniable. By refusing the crown, he remains himself. He spares Marceline the torment of watching him unravel. He lives and dies as a man of science, remembered fondly by those who knew him. His life is not legendary, but it is whole. This bedtime imagining offers us a choice to reflect upon. Would we rather see Simon live in peace, even if it means losing the story of the Ice King? Or would we rather hold on to the tale we know, with all its sorrow, all its humor, all its tragedy, woven into the heart of Oo? It is not a question with an easy answer. Peace is gentle, but story is lasting. Safety is kind, but legend carries meaning. In imagining a Simon who never wore the crown, we glimpse what Oo might have lost and what Simon himself might have gained. And perhaps that is the heart of this what if, that sometimes the very choices that preserve us also erase the echoes we might have left behind. Simon without the crown is happier, yes, but without his legend, Oo is less alive. As we drift toward the close of this imagining, let us return once more to Simon himself. In the story we know, his life is defined by contradiction, a man who loved deeply, but who became lost in madness, a hero to one child, but a villain to many others. He is both tragic and comic, sorrowful and absurd. In a single figure, Adventure Time holds a mirror to the way love and loss intertwine. But here, in this what if, Simon never places the crown upon his head. His contradiction dissolves. He is not two men in one, but only himself. He walks through life as a scholar, a guardian, a man who survives the end of one world and helps nurture another. His hands are never cold with the chill of the crown. His mind never fractures into scattered memory. He lives as Simon, and he dies as Simon. Marceline remembers him differently in this telling. She still carries him in her songs, but the notes are less jagged, less raw. They are lullabies of gratitude, filled with the warmth of memory. She does not rage at fate for stealing it, does not mourn the madness that took him away while his body still lived. Instead, she grieves in a quieter way, grieving the way one might for a candle that burned gently until its wick was gone, a life finite but beautiful. And yet, that quiet grief changes her story, too. In the world we know, her pain becomes a source of sharpness, of power. She is hardened by loss, softened by music, her soul shaped by a love that was fractured. Without that fracture, she remains whole, but perhaps less layered. She is still Marceline, still playful and defiant, still eternal and complex, but she is not the same. The deep sorrow that gave her songs their unique edge is replaced by a gentler melancholy. Finn, too, grows different. He does not have the Ice King to test his patience, to force him into compassion, to teach him that even those who seem foolish or cruel may hide broken hearts. His adventures continue, yes. He still faces villains, still protects friends, still becomes a hero. But without the Ice King, his journey is simpler, cleaner, less complicated by paradox. He becomes a hero of action, not as much a hero of understanding. And Oo itself, without the Ice King, the land is steadier, safer, and less unpredictable. There are no icy towers dotting the landscape, no bumbling king crashing into the affairs of kingdoms. But there is also no voice of loneliness echoing through its heart. The Ice King was, in many ways, Oo's tragic heartbeat, a reminder that even in a land of whimsy, sorrow lingered. Without him, Oo is brighter but flatter. It shines, but it does not ache. So this bedtime tale leaves us with another gentle paradox. By refusing the crown, Simon saves himself. He saves Marceline from anguish. He lives in peace, dies in peace, and is remembered with warmth. But in saving himself, he erases the story that might have been. He erases the Ice King, that strange, tragic, unforgettable figure, whose presence gave Oo its depth. The world is kinder, but less meaningful. Simon is safer, but less legendary. It is a choice that invites us to reflect on our own lives. Do we seek the path of safety, where love is preserved but stories are smaller? Or do we step into risk, knowing it might break us, but also knowing it might leave behind echoes that last beyond us? There is no right answer, only the quiet awareness that both peace and tragedy have their own kind of beauty. As you let this vision settle in your thoughts, picture Simon one last time in this alternate world. He sits in a small library, glasses slipping down his nose, a cup of tea steaming beside him. Marceline leans against the window, strumming softly, her voice filling the room. The world outside is quiet, scarred but still breathing. And inside, for this moment, there is love, warmth, and peace. He smiles at her song, and she smiles back. In this fable, That is where his story ends. And then gently, imagine the world we know instead. A lonely tower of ice. A man in blue robes, his mind scattered, his heart aching. A king who is not a king, whose laughter hides a tragedy. That story is harsher, but it lingers longer. It haunts us. It reminds us. Both versions are bedtime stories, each with their own lesson. One whispers that peace is precious. The other whispers that even brokenness has meaning. Together, they remind us of the strange, fragile balance between love and loss, safety and story. Now, dear sleepyheads, let us wander into perhaps the most haunting what-if of all. We have seen a world where Simon never touched the crown. But what if, instead, Marceline had been the one to place it upon her head? Close your eyes and picture her, young and frightened, standing in the ruins after the Mushroom War. The crown glitters in her hands, its blue jewels gleaming faintly in the dust-filled light. Simon is there beside her, older, kind, but trembling, fear of its power. And in this imagining, she makes a choice. She places the crown on her own head, believing she can bear its weight, believing she can spare Simon the burden. At first, the cold rushes through her like a storm. She feels the weight of the ice flooding her veins, the whisper of ancient power pressing against her mind. But unlike Simon, she is not human. She is already part demon, part vampire, part eternal. The crown clings to her differently. It does not shatter her instantly, but begins to seep slowly, winding its way into her soul. She remains herself, at least for a while, stronger, colder, but still Marceline. Imagine the figure she becomes in the centuries that follow. The vampire queen, now also the ice queen. Her songs, once raw and fiery, become tinged with frost. She builds towers of ice with her voice, conjures blizzards with her sorrow. Her loneliness grows sharper, because eternity is now doubled by the crown's cruel gift. She is not only undead, she is frozen in time, her heart beating beneath layers of frost. Simon, in this vision, remains human. He is spared from madness, but his heart breaks as he watches Marceline slowly unravel. He devotes his life to finding a way to free her, studying the crown, scouring ruins for answers. He becomes the guardian, and she the cursed. The roles are reversed, yet the tragedy remains. For though he stays by her side, though he never abandons, he knows one day he will age and fade, leaving her alone with the crown's whisper. And Oo itself feels her presence different. Instead of a bumbling ice king, the land has a regal, fearsome ice queen. She rules her frozen towers with both grace and sorrow. She does not steal princesses or sing silly songs. Instead, she radiates authority, her icy powers shaping kingdoms with precision. She is a queen in truth, her sorrow hidden beneath regal bearing. Oo fears her, respects her, and perhaps even admires. But inside, Marceline still aches. She still sings to herself in the quiet, her bass echoing against walls of ice. Her songs are colder now, her voice carrying frost as well as fire. And in every note, there lingers the memory of Simon's love and the regret of a choice made long ago. What of Princess Bubblegum in this telling? Without the Ice King's antics, her encounters with Marceline's icy half would be heavier. She would not be rescuing citizens from a fool's clutches, but negotiating with a queen whose sorrow weighs on every word. Their relationship, already complicated, becomes even more tangled. Bubblegum sees not just a rival, but a reflection of power's cost. She looks into Marceline's frosted eyes and sees what love and sacrifice can twist into. Finn, too, meets a different mentor in this world. Instead of laughing at the Ice King's silliness, he faces the Ice Queen's gravitas. She is both a friend and a foe, teaching him lessons through battles and words alike. His adventures with her are not filled with frustration, but with awe and caution. He learns from her what it means to carry a burden too heavy, what it means to hide sorrow behind strength. And the songs of Oo themselves change, for Marceline's music, tinged by the crown, becomes the soundtrack of the land. Where the Ice King once hummed silly ballads, Marceline's voice carries weight. Every note is a lullaby of frost, echoing through mountains and forests, turning Oo's nights into hymns of sorrow. The world is quieter, sadder, but also strangely more beautiful under her reign. This bedtime imagining shows us a paradox once again. By taking the crown, Marceline spares Simone, but she condemns her. She becomes both ruler and prisoner, loved and feared. Who gains a queen of ice instead of a king of madness? But the story remains heavy with tragedy. Let us follow Simon for a time in this altered path. He is spared the madness of the crown, yes, but his heart is heavy with another kind of burden. Each day he wakes and sees Marceline, radiant and eternal, yet touched by frost. Her laughter still shines, but now it carries an edge of chill. Her songs still echo, but their notes seem to shimmer like ice cracking under weight. Simon knows what she gave up. She took the curse he would not, and though he is grateful, he is also haunted, because he cannot share her eternity. So Simon does what he does best. He studies. He hunts through the ruins for ancient tomes, dusty artifacts, any clue that might reveal how to free her. In this telling, he becomes Oo's wandering scholar, not a mad king, but a devoted guardian. Wherever Marceline's frost spread, Simon is not far behind, searching for warmth to give back to her. His love is steady, his mind intact, but the clock is always ticking. He will one day fade, and she will remain frozen and unchanging. Marceline, under the crown's growing influence, drifts between herself and something colder. The whispers are there, faint, like a chill wind brushing her mind. She resists, for her spirit's strong, but the crown is patient. It seeps into her memories, making her doubt, making her cling harder to Simon, even as she feels herself slip away. Her songs change in this era of her life, once playful, then rebellious. Now they are hymns of resistance. She sings not only for herself, but against the voice that presses upon her thoughts. In Ooh, her presence reshapes the balance of kingdom. The Ice Queen does not stumble through forests kidnapping princesses. She reigns from her towers with dignity, her crown glittering, her eyes glowing faintly blue. Her magic is precise, her blizzards fierce, her icy sculptures breathtaking. Other rulers treat her with caution. The Candy Kingdom fears her power, but they do not mock her as they once mocked the Ice King. The Fire Kingdom respects her flame for ice opposition. Even the demons of the Nightosphere glance toward her realm with wary curiosity. She is not a clownish king, but a sovereign, commanding, and eternal. And yet behind this regal image lies sorrow. For every wall of ice she raises is a barrier between herself and the world. Every icy sculpture is a piece of her humanity locked in crystal. She becomes admired, even revered, but rarely loved. The more powerful she grows, the lonelier she becomes. Bubblegum, ever the scientist, studies Marceline from afar. Their bond still lingers, but it is strained by frost. She wants to help, but Marceline's pride is sharper under the crown. They argue as they always did, but now their arguments carry the cold edge of eternity. Bubblegum sees the toll the crown is taking, but she cannot fix it. She watches a friend she loves become a queen she cannot reach. Finn's encounters with Marceline in this world are unlike anything he knew with the Ice King. Instead of battling a bumbling old man, he finds himself standing before a queen whose power outshines his own. Their clashes are not foolish but fierce, and yet, through every battle, he sees her humanity flicker. He learns that even the strongest can carry unbearable burden. Her story becomes one of his greatest lessons, that sometimes being a hero is not about defeating someone, but about standing with them as they fight their own inner storm. The songs of this world are colder, quieter. Where the Ice King once filled Ooh with awkward laughter, Marceline fills it with haunting beauty. Her bass hums through icy halls. Her voice carries across snowfields. To some, her music is terrifying, a queen's anthem. To others, it is comforting, a reminder that even in frost, warmth can be found. Her songs become Oo's lullabies, bittersweet, sorrowful, but unforgettable. And Simon, growing older with each passing year, writes everything down. He fills journals with memories, records of their travels, notes about her laughter, sketches of her frozen tower. He knows he cannot save her, but he can leave behind proof that she lived, that she loved, that she was more than the crown. In this way, he becomes her historian, the quiet voice that ensures her story will be remembered even when his own body is gone. This bedtime imagining grows heavy as we linger here. For Marceline's sacrifice, though noble, becomes her prison. She saves Simon, yes, But in doing so, she binds herself to loneliness, to whisper, to a cold eternity that slowly steals pieces of her song. Ooh gains a queen, but loses a friend. And Simon, though free of madness, suffers a different kind of heartbreak. The heartbreak of watching someone you love carry a burden you cannot lift. As years pass in this imagining, Marceline becomes something larger than herself. The Ice Queen is no longer only a person. She becomes a myth whispered across Ooh. Travelers speak of her icy towers rising like glassy spires in the north. Farmers tell stories of her storms that sweep across the plains, sudden and fierce, yet strangely beautiful. Children in the Candy Kingdom huddle together and listen as their parents warn them of the queen who rules the frozen wind. Some see her as a villain, others as a goddess, but few know the truth, that behind the frost lies a heart that once only wanted to protect. Her songs drift farther now. They are carried on the winds of her blizzards, echoing through valleys and over mountains. Entire villages hear her voice before they ever see her, and those who hear it often pause, caught between awe and sorrow. For her music is not cruel, not violent. It is aching, longing, filled with memory. It is the sound of eternity wrestling with itself. Even those who fear her cannot deny that her voice feels alive in their hearts. Ooh, in this world, does not laugh at its ice cream. It listens. Simon, growing older, is known too, though not as a legend of power. He is remembered as the man who walked beside her, frail and mortal, carrying journals and maps, always writing, always observing. Where she is a queen, he is a witness. His devotion becomes part of her myth. Even when his body weakens, he is seen by her side, holding her hand, reminding her of who she is beneath the frost. And when his time finally ends, Ooh mourns for him, not because he was powerful, but because his quiet love gave humanity to a queen who might otherwise have been lost to ice. Without Simon, Marceline becomes even more distant. She still sings, but her songs are lonelier. She still rules, but her reign grows colder. The whispers of the crown, no longer balanced by Simon's warmth, seep deeper into her mind. Her memory frays at the edges, not with the wild chaos that consumed Simon in the original tale, but with a slow erosion, like ice melting drip by drip. She forgets small things first, the words to old songs, the faces of fleeting friends. She clings to Simon's journals as proof of her past, reading them over and over, afraid of losing what they hold. The kingdoms of Ooh shape themselves around her. The Candy Kingdom strengthens its defenses, not against invasions, but against the possibility of frost sweeping their borders. The Fire Kingdom wages wars of pride, determined to prove that flame can outlast ice. The small kingdoms of Slime and Rock tell stories of her as both destroyer and savior. She is no longer just a person. She is an axis around which their myths spin. Her presence defines their fears and their hopes. And yet for all the fear she inspires, she is not cruel. Her frost is not meant to dominate, but to shield herself from loneliness. Every glacier she builds is another wall against the whisper. Every storm she conjures is another song screamed into the sky, begging to drown out the crown's voice. She is a queen, yes, but she is also still a girl who once wanted comfort in a ruined world. That part of her never fully fades, even as centuries pass. Symbolically, this bedtime imagining tells us something profound. When Simon bore the crown, his tragedy was the loss of self through sacrifice. When Marceline bears it, the tragedy shifts. Hers is not the chaos of madness, but the heaviness of eternity. The slow awareness that love is fleeting while her burden is endless. She chose the crown to protect Simon, but in doing so, she condemned herself to a prison he could never share. Her sacrifice becomes a mirror of love's cost. Sometimes we give everything for another, even if it means losing ourselves. Ooh, as a story changes its heart in this version. Instead of being shaped by the bumbling antics of the Ice King, it is shaped by the sorrowful reign of the Ice Queen. Its adventures are darker, its lessons heavier. Heroes still rise, kingdoms still clash, but their world feels less whimsical and more solemn. Where laughter once softened the tragedy, here the tragedy remains sharp. Children still sing songs, but they are slower. Their melodies laced with frost. And yet beauty lives here too. For Marceline's sacrifice, though tragic, gives a queen who embodies both strength and sorrow. She is feared, yes, but also revered. She becomes a reminder that love can be powerful enough to carry unbearable weight. And though she is lonely, she is never meaningless. Her presence shapes everything. Her legend, outlasting the ruins of the war, the rise of kingdoms, the fall of heroes. As you rest with this vision, imagine yourself walking through her frozen hall. The walls glitter with blue light, cold but breathtaking. Her music hums faintly through the air, low and soft, like a lullaby carved into ice. You see her seated on her throne, crown glowing faintly, eyes distant but alive. She glances toward Simon's old journals resting on a pedestal beside her, and a quiet smile brushes her lips. She remembers. She still remembers. And in that remembrance lies both her pain and her grace. As centuries pass in this bedtime imagining, Marceline's legend deepens. She becomes part of the very landscape of her name whispered in the same breath as mountains and rivers. To some, she is a guardian, her icy storms keeping darker forces at bay. To others, she is a curse, a reminder that love can freeze into something unreachable. Children grow up hearing bedtime stories of the Ice Queen who sings beneath the moon, and in every telling, the truth drifts further away, hidden under layers of myth and fear. But behind the throne, behind the frost and the songs, there is still Marceline. She still wanders at times, leaving her palace to walk among mortals. She disguises her crown beneath a hood, slipping quietly to taverns or villages. She listens to the laughter of children, the chatter of merchants, the warmth of fireside. For a moment, she remembers what it felt like to live without the weight of eternity pressing upon her. And then, as the whispers of the crown grow louder, she retreats again into her halls, afraid of losing herself among them. The loneliness of this path is profound. When Simon bore the crown, he lost his identity in madness, but he never faced eternity alone. He was pitied, laughed at, even loved despite his flaws. Marceline, by contrast, becomes untouchable, too powerful to be mocked, too sorrowful to be embraced. She is respected, but rarely held. And so her immortality, already heavy, becomes heavier still. Her songs, though, carry her heart where her voice cannot. Across her music drifts like falling snow, reaching even those who fear her most. For music, unlike frost, cannot be contained. It seeps into hearts, softens anger, awakens memory. Many who grow up fearing the Ice Queen also grow up humming her songs, finding comfort in the very voice of the figure they are taught to dread. In this way, Marceline remains connected to not through warmth of touch, but through the resonance of sound. And what of her relationship with Bubblegum? The bond remains, though strained by time and frost. Bonnebeau sees Marceline's sacrifice, sees the nobility hidden in her icy throne, and she loves her. But she also grieves because she knows she can never pull Marceline back from the crown's grasp. Their love flickers, sometimes bright, sometimes dim, but always shadowed by the cold. They walk together in rare moments of peace, but each knows the crown always waits. Finn, as he grows older, learns more from Marceline than from almost any other. He sees in her the cost of sacrifice, the weight of choosing another's safety over one's own. Their battles are not of hatred, but of understanding. He respects her as both ally and adversary, learning that strength is not only in victory, but in carrying burdens no one else can. In this world, Marceline becomes one of Finn's greatest teachers, even if her lessons are carved from sorrow. The symbolism of this fable is heavy but clear. To take the crown is to accept a paradox, the power to protect others, but at the cost of oneself. Simon's tragedy was madness. Marceline's tragedy is loneliness. In both, the crown reveals a truth about love that it asks more of us than we sometimes wish to give, and yet we give anyway. Their stories remind us that love can be both salvation and prison, both warmth and frost. Now imagine, as we close this vision, Marceline seated alone in her frozen palace. The crown glows faintly, her breath misting in the cold air. She strums her bass, her fingers delicate against the string. A melody fills the hall, soft, haunting, and beautiful. The ice itself seems to listen, glimmering faintly as though responding to her song. In her music, she remembers Simon. She remembers bubblegum. She remembers laughter and warmth. She remembers who she was before the crown, even as it whispers to her still. Her song drifts outward, carried by the wind. It reaches forests, rivers, kingdom, and firesides. Across Ooh, people pause, listening to the Ice Queen's lullaby. Some fear her, some pity her. Some find themselves comforted by the sorrow in her voice, as if it reminds them that they are not alone in their own griefs. In this way, Marceline, even bound to frost, becomes a kind of guardian. Her loneliness teaches Ooh what it means to love, to lose, and to endure. And so this fable ends not with laughter, nor with triumph, but with song. A song of sacrifice, a song of love heavy as ice, a song that tells us sometimes saving another means surrendering ourselves. As we rest with this vision, we can feel its quiet weight. It reminds us that every choice carries both gift and cost. Marceline spared Simon, but she took the burden to her own heart, and in doing so, she gave Ooh a queen both feared and beloved, a legend carved in frost and music. Now, sleepyheads, let us turn the page once more, for we have seen worlds of safety, of silence, of sacrifice. But what if the greatest battle of all had ended different? What if, in the final clash of Ooh's story, Golb had not been defeated? What if Golb had won? Now, sleepyheads, let us wander into the darkest of our bedtime questions. We have dreamed of safety without war, of silence without magic, of Simon spared, of Marceline crowned. But here we step into a vision that chills even the warmest blanket. What if, in the final hour of Adventure Time, Golb had won? Close your eyes and picture that battle once more. Finn, Jake, Bubblegum, Marceline, Ice King, all gathered against the chaos incarnate. The air is thick with uncreation, shapes twisting, the very fabric of Ooh trembling in Golb's presence. In the story we know, music and love reach through the darkness, changing the shape of the fight, softening chaos into possibility. But imagine that moment tipping the other way. Imagine the song falter, the hero's courage breaks against the storm, and Golb consumes the land. The first thing we would notice is silence. Golb's victory is not loud. It is not marked by fireworks or roars. It is the swallowing of sound itself. The kingdoms crumble without a cry. The candy walls melt into nothing. The fire kingdom's flames sputter and vanish. The ice kingdom collapses into shards that dissolve as if they were never there. One by one, the landmarks of Ooh fade, not broken, not burned, but erased. The people, too, are unmade, their voices cut short. Princess Bubblegum, with all her science and stubbornness, becomes dust of thought scattered in the void. Marceline, who has endured centuries, who has carried every kind of loss, feels her songs fall silent in her throat. Jake stretches one last time, not to save himself, but to shield Finn, before his body unravels like a dream. And Finn, the human, the last boy of Ooh, the symbol of courage itself, stands in the fading light, reaching forward with his sword only to watch his story dissolve around him. For Golb does not destroy in the way a bomb destroys. Golb unmakes. He pulls apart the threads of story itself. In his victory, there are no ruins to wander, no memories to carry. There is only silence, endless and vast. But let us follow this bedtime vision more deeply. What does Ooh become under Golb's reign? The answer is strange, for Ooh ceases to be Ooh at all. The land of Ooh is built upon contradiction, joy and sorrow, destruction and creation, war and renewal. Without it, the story ends. Golb's presence is not life, not death, but unstory. His victory erases adventure, erases meaning, erases the very possibility of tales being told. And yet, within that void, faint remnants may linger. Perhaps Marceline's last song echoes faintly, carried nowhere but still humming. Perhaps Simon's notes in his journals flutter before dissolving. Perhaps Finn's courage leaves behind a single spark, glowing faintly in the black. These remnants do not rebuild a world, but they remind us of what was. They remind us that, even in nothingness, memory fights to remain. Symbolically, Golb's victory whispers a lesson about ending. Adventure Time always balanced the surreal with the hopeful, the chaotic with the tender. But if chaos wins fully, if the song does not reach through, the result is not tragedy, it is emptiness. Tragedy still leaves stories. Emptiness leaves none. Golb's victory would not give us a darker ooh. It would give us no ooh at all. This is what makes this what if the heaviest of all. The others showed us different shapes of ooh safer, quieter, lonelier, sadder. But they still left us with a world to wander, songs to hear, with characters to follow. Golb's victory removes even that. It erases not just the land, but the story itself. It is the bedtime tale that cannot be told, because nothing remains to fill its pages. Yet even here, as we rest in this vision, we can find a strange kind of reflection. Golb's power reminds us why stories matter. They give shape to chaos. They hold back silence. They let us feel meaning in the midst of ending. Without them, we drift. With them, even ruin blooms into adventure. So when we imagine Golb winning, we are really imagining what it would mean to lose story itself. And in feeling that loss, we come to appreciate the miracle of ooh that somehow, against chaos, songs were sung, friendships were forged, love endured, and stories were told. Let us wander a little deeper into this vision of Golb's triumph, for while his victory unravels the fabric of ooh, bedtime tales often ask us to linger on the details, to follow what becomes of those we love most when the story itself begins to fray. Imagine Finn first. He is the boy who stood against every darkness, whose courage never faltered, whose laughter carried through even the bleakest time. Under Golb's victory, his body may vanish, his sword may dissolve, but perhaps something of his spirit resists. In the endless churn of chaos, fragments of Finn drift a memory of his smile here, a glimmer of his bravery there, a faint echo of his voice calling out for adventure. He does not survive as a hero whole and living, but as pieces of a legend that cling stubbornly to the void. And if Golb has any weakness, it is this, that meaning, once born, resists erasure. Jake, ever by Finn's side, might share that fate. His body stretches and warps as chaos takes hold, but his essence is loyalty. Even when the world is undone, the thread of Jake's love twines itself around Finn's fragment. Where Finn flickers as courage, Jake lingers as warmth. Together, even as shards of themselves, they drift through the unstory of Golb like sparks refusing to fade. Their brotherhood becomes a constellation in the darkness, unreachable, yet enduring. Marceline, too, would not vanish quietly. She has always been tied to music, to memory, to the power of song as resistance. Within Golb's chaos, perhaps her body unraveled, her base splintering into nothing. But her songs are harder to erase. They slip between cracks, echo through silence, hum in places where even chaos hesitates. In this fable, Marceline becomes pure music, her voice stretched into endless strand, weaving faint patterns across the void. Those who once feared Golb's silence might still hear her, faint as wind, reminding them that beauty can defy even uncreation. Princess Bubblegum's fate would be different. She is not just a ruler, but a creator. She builds kingdoms from sugar, societies from nothing. In the grasp of Golb, her body dissolves like candy melting in water. Yet her essence is structure, the drive to shape, to give order. Even within chaos, that impulse flickers. Perhaps pieces of her mind continue to arrange fragments of nothing into faint patterns, small clusters of meaning hidden in the dark. They are fragile, scattered, but they resist Golb's total reign. For even in silence, the instinct to build remains. And then Simon, poor Simon, who in the true story regained his humanity, who finally stepped free of the crown's whisper. In Golb's victory, his return is cut short. The fragile peace he found collapses. Perhaps the crown's shards cling to him once more, twisting his mind back into fragments of ice and sorrow. Or perhaps, in this bedtime imagining, Simon becomes the witness within Golb, the one who remembers everything, even as everything unravels. He cannot stop it, cannot fight it, but he holds the memory of ooh inside himself, a faint light in the dark. He becomes the storyteller of what was, even if no one is left to hear. Together, these fragments, Finn's courage, Jake's warmth, Marceline's song, Bubblegum's structure, Simon's memory float in Golb's endless silence. They are not alive as we understand life, but they endure in some spectral form, and that is where the poetry of this fable rests. For Golb, chaos incarnate can unmake bodies and kingdom, but even he struggles to erase meaning once it has been lived. In this way, the story of becomes not a land, but a constellation of fragments: courage, loyalty, song, creation, memory. They linger like faint stars in an endless black sky. And though Golb rules, though his silence is vast, these small lights are proof that even chaos cannot consume everything. As we let this vision settle, we notice how different it feels from our earlier what-ifs. When the war never came, the world was ordinary. When magic never returned, and the world was barren. When Simon refused the crown, the world was peaceful but smaller. When Marceline bore it, the world was sorrowful but beautiful. But here, when Golb wins, the world itself ends. What remains are not kingdoms or adventures, but essences, the purest forms of those who once lived. This bedtime imagining may feel heavy, yet it carries its own comfort. It reminds us that even when stories end, even when silence looms, something of meaning always resists. Love leaves traces, courage leaves sparks, music leaves echoes, and together they linger, even in the coldest void. If we drift further into this imagining, we see that does not survive as land or kingdom, but as memory. The shapes of its forests, its rivers, its candy castles are gone. Yet within Golb's endless silence, faint outlines remain. They are not landscapes in the physical, but impressions, the way a dream lingers in the mind upon waking. The more you try to grasp them, the more they slip away, yet their presence cannot be denied. Imagine travelers of the future wandering through this void. They would not find solid ground, but they might catch glimpses. A flash of green like a canopy of the Candy Kingdom. A shimmer of orange flame like the Fire Kingdom's glow. A faint, crystalline spire like an echo of the Ice Kingdom. These are not real places anymore, but the afterimage of stories lives so vividly that even Golb could not erase them. And in those faint outlines, the fragments of our heroes shine brighter. Thin spark of courage might flare when someone stumbles into danger, giving them the will to move forward. Jake's warmth might brush across lonely souls, comforting them the cold. Marceline's song might hum in the silence, pulling tears from eyes that do not remember why they cry. Bubblegum's structure might gather scattered fragments into fleeting patterns, like snowflakes forming for an instant before melting again. Simon's memory might whisper, quietly telling what once was to anyone who cares to listen. Golb's reign is eternal, but even eternity cannot silence what was truly lived. This is the paradox hidden in his victory. He swallows stories, but in doing so he becomes their keeper. For if he consumes everything, then everything still lives inside him in some twisted form. And so though destroyed, still exists within the folds of Golb's chaos, not as a living land, but as a remembered dream. Symbolically, this bedtime tale hums with meaning. Adventure Time often reminded us that endings are not truly endings, that every farewell carries a seed of renewal. But in Golb's victory, that renewal is denied. The story collapses in on itself, leaving no stage for new adventures. And yet, even here, the very act of imagining this outcome creates its own kind of resistance. We tell the story of erased, and in telling it, we keep alive. This is the strange power of stories. They exist even when they end. Think of Marceline's song. They are born from pain, yet they linger as beauty. Think of Simon's tragedy. It breaks our hearts, yet it teaches us compassion. Think of Finn's courage. His adventures are finite, but they live forever in memory. Even if Golb had triumphed, even if silence ruled, the stories themselves would resist in the minds of those who heard them once. Perhaps that is the true weakness of Golb. He is chaos, erasure, silence, but he cannot create. He cannot love. He cannot sing. The more he consumes, the more meaning clings to what he swallows. In this bedtime imagining, Oo's defeat becomes its victory. For by being lived, it cannot be erased fully. Its fragment outlast even chaos. Now picture yourself drifting through this void. Around you is nothing, no land, no sky, no kingdom. Yet faint glimmers flicker like fireflies in the dark. You hear a laugh, brief but warm. You hear a song, soft and haunting. You feel the pull of loyalty, the spark of courage, the memory of love. These are the remnants of ooh clinging to you as you drift. And though they cannot rebuild the world, they remind you that it once was, that it mattered, that it will always matter. As we rest with this image, a quiet comfort unfolds. Even in the darkest ending, even in the victory of silence, meaning endures. Stories resist. Love endures. And perhaps that is why Adventure Time gave us victory instead of defeat. Not because Golb could not win, but because we needed to remember that stories matter more than silence, that songs matter more than chaos, that even in endings, something beautiful remains. And so this fable does not end in despair, but in reflection. Golb's triumph is terrifying, yes, but it also reminds us of why ooh was precious. Because every laugh, every song, every act of love was lived so brightly that even imagining their erasure feels unbearable. And in feeling that, we know they are safe. They cannot be unmade, not truly, because they live in us, the listeners, the dreamers, the ones who carry the bedtime stories forward. As we reach the quiet close of this imagining, let us linger a little longer within the silence Golb leaves behind. For silence is not always empty. Sometimes it is a mirror, showing us what mattered most by its absence. Think of the friendships that shaped ooh, Finn and Jake's brotherhood, Marceline and Bubblegum's love, Simon's care for Marceline, even Ice King's strange yearning for companionship. In the story we know, and these bonds weave together to form the heart of Adventure Time. But under Golb's reign, those bonds unravel, and yet, curiously, they still echo. A fragment of Jake's laughter drifts through the void. A faint memory of Bubblegum's steady voice clings to the darkness. Marceline's song quivers like a thread stretched to breaking, yet it does not snap. These echoes tell us something important, that love, once lived, cannot be erased, even when the world itself is gone. In this way, Golb's victory becomes less of a final erasure and more of a haunting. Ooh's ghosts, not in the form of spirits, but in the form of essence, hover forever in the void. They are not strong enough to rebuild what was lost, but they are stubborn enough to refuse silence. And for the listener, this becomes its own kind of bedtime comfort, that even when all seems ended, something always resists. Let us picture Marceline once more, her song unraveling into the void. It is not whole, not sharp, but scattered into notes that drift apart. One fragment hums of childhood, another of rebellion, another of love. Together they form no full melody, but anyone who catches them would feel her presence. The same with Finn. His courage is no longer a boy with a sword, but a spark that flares whenever someone dares to take a step forward, even in fear. Jake's warmth glows like a fading fire that still gives heat to those near. Bubblegum's drive to build flickers whenever fragments gather, even briefly, into shape. And Simon's memory whispers like a faint narration in the dark, recounting stories that refuse to fade. The lesson becomes clear. Golb represents the void, the swallowing of meaning, the erasure of story. But the characters of ooh represent the opposite. They represent the persistence of meaning, the way love, courage, music, creation, and memory cling to existence. Golb may win the battle, but he cannot undo the truth that they live. And in this bedtime fable, that becomes the ultimate comfort. Nothing truly lived can ever be unmade. Adventure Time itself often reminded us of this lesson, that though kingdoms rise and fall, though heroes grow old, though stories end, what mattered endures in memory and song. The finale gave us this truth through victory love, defeating chaos. But this what if, by imagining defeat, teaches us the same truth from another angle. It shows us how unbearable silence would be, and in doing so reminds us why the story's existence is miraculous. So as you rest with this vision, imagine drifting in Golb's void. It is dark, but not completely. Tiny lights flicker, scattered like stars. They are faint, but they are enough to guide you. You feel warmth brush your shoulder. Hear a laugh echo faintly. Catch the rhythm of a song carried on nothing. And you realize that though the world has ended, the essence of what was still holds you. It is not enough to bring ooh back, but it is enough to keep it alive in your heart. And maybe that is the deeper purpose of bedtime stories like this, to remind us that even endings carry traces of beginning, that even silence carries echoes of song, that even in imagining loss, we preserve what was precious. For by telling the tale of Golb's victory, we resist it. By imagining the void, we fill it with fragments of memory. By closing our eyes, we see more clearly why ooh matters. So let us gently set this fable aside. Golb's triumph has shown us the cost of losing story itself, the unbearable weight of silence. And in doing so, it has reminded us to treasure every laugh, every song, every act of love that filled the true ooh. Now, sleepyheads, we turn to our final question of the night. It is not cosmic, not apocalyptic, not about crowns or chaos. It is smaller, but perhaps more tender than all the rest. What if Finn and Jake had never met? Now, sleepyheads, we arrive at our final what if of the night. The questions before have been vast, the fate of worlds, the victory of chaos, the weight of crown. But this one is smaller, gentler, and perhaps the most tender of all. What if Finn and Jake never crossed paths? What if the boy and the dog, whose laughter and love became the heart of ooh, lived their lives apart? Close your eyes and picture Finn first. In the story we know, he is raised in the warm embrace of Joshua and Margaret, Jake's parents, who give him a family despite the mystery of his origins. He grows up in a home filled with love, food on the table, warmth in the night. But in this imagining, fate tilts differently. The infant left in the forest is not found by Joshua and Margaret. He survives, yes, but in lonelier ways. Perhaps a wandering band of humans takes him in. Or perhaps he grows up in solitude, learning to fend for himself in the wild corners of ooh. Without Jake at his side, Finn's childhood is harder. The laughter we know him for is muted. He still dreams of being a hero, for that spark is in his heart. No matter the path, but without a brother to steady him, his courage burns sharper, lonelier. He rushes into danger, not with joyful song, but with clenched fists and gritted teeth. He becomes a hero still, but one marked by solitude. His victories less playful, his triumphs less bright. Now picture Jake. In the story we know he is not only Finn's brother, but his balance, his calm, his lazy joy that keeps Finn from burning out. But here, Jake grows up without a human brother to shape his path. He still has Lady Rainicorn, still has friends, still enjoys the simple pleasures of ooh. Yet his days are quieter, less adventurous. Without Finn tugging him into quests, he spends more time napping, playing music, wandering idly. His life is easier but emptier. He never learns what it means to stretch his loyalty to its fullest shape, because he never has a brother calling for his help. Ooh itself feels different in their absence as a pair. Many adventures are never begun. Many kingdoms are never saved. Bubblegum may still rule. Marceline may still sing. Simon may still wander. But the thread that tied them all together, the boy and the dog side by side, is missing. Conflicts drag on longer without their intervention. Some villains rise unchecked. Some friendships never blossom. The laughter that softened the edges of ooh is quieter, the stories less warm. And yet, this fable is not without beauty. Finn and Jake, apart, still carry their own sparks. Finn grows into a lone wanderer, his sword always at his side, a figure whispered about in villages as the human hero. He is respected, even admired. But when he returns to campfires at night, he sits alone, his song sung only to himself. Jake grows into a gentle drifter, beloved by those who know him, always quick with a joke, always ready to share his stretchy tricks. But his life is smaller, his adventures shallower. He is content, but not complete. Symbolically, this bedtime imagining tells us something powerful. Finn and Jake are not only heroes because of what they do, they are heroes because of who they are together. Finn's courage without Jake's warmth is brittle. Jake's joy without Finn's fire is hollow. Only together do they become whole. Only together do they form the heart of ooh, the center around which all stories spin. As we drift further into this vision, let us pause and listen. In the true story, their laughter often fills the air. They sing silly songs. They tease one another. They share victories and sorrows with equal weight. In this what if, the air is quieter. Finn's sword still clatters against villains. Jake's jokes still spark smiles. but the harmony of their voices, the way they complete one another, is absent. And in that absence, we understand just how much they matter. If we let this story flow onward, we begin to see how the absence of their bond reshapes not only their lives, but the very rhythm of Ooo. For Ooo, after all, is a land of stories, and so many of its brightest sprang from the laughter of a boy and his dog walking side by side. Princess Bubblegum feels this difference keenly. In the world we know, Finn and Jake often came to her aid, sometimes bumbling, sometimes brilliant, but always with loyalty in their hearts. Without them, the Candy Kingdom must lean harder upon its own defenses, and Bubblegum herself grows sharper, more calculating. She has no young human hero charging into her throne room, eager to help, eager to prove himself. She has no stretchy dog cracking a joke to lighten her burden. She becomes more of a queen, less of a friend, her heart wrapped in layers of duty with fewer reminders of play. Marceline, too, feels the absence. She still plays her songs, still roams across Ooo, still drifts between solitude and friendship. But without Finn and Jake pulling her into adventures, her bond with others deepens more slowly. She may remain aloof for longer, her music tinged with loneliness. Perhaps she still finds connection with Bubblegum in time, but it comes later, harder, because she has not been softened by silly quests with two companions who accept her as she is. Without them, her laughter is rarer, her trust slower to awaken. And then there is Ice King. In the true story, Finn and Jake's encounters with him are endless, shaping both his role and theirs. They grow frustrated with his antics, then slowly come to understand the tragedy beneath his madness. Without their constant presence, Ice King is left unchecked, more isolated, less tethered to moments of reluctant companionship. He becomes a sadder figure in this imagining, not because he causes more harm, but because fewer people truly see him. Without Finn's curiosity and Jake's reluctant patience, his loneliness stretches longer, colder. Even the grander arcs of Oo's story shift. When villains rise, there is no duo of boy and dog to charge into battle, no voices of youth shouting defiantly against chaos. Other heroes may rise, yes, but their stories lack the same warmth, the same mixture of earnestness and play. Ooo becomes a land defended more by kingdoms than by friendship, more by armies than by laughter. The balance tilts toward caution and calculation, away from the spontaneous joy that Finn and Jake embodied. And yet the two still live. Finn, the human hero, becomes a solitary figure. He wanders from place to place, lending aid where he can, his sword flashing in defense of the weak. Villagers whisper his name, grateful for his help. But they notice the shadow in his eyes, the way his smile fades when the fire burns low, the way he walks away alone when the danger is done. His legend is born, but it is not softened by joy. Jake, meanwhile, drifts gently through life. He stretches to amuse friends, lounges in the sun, plays his viola when the mood strikes. He is content, but his contentment is shallow, never pushed to its full depths. Without Finn to challenge him, to drag him from naps into danger, his life lacks the shape of growth. He remains comfortable, but never legendary. Together, apart, they are incomplete. Finn's fire lacks warmth. Jake's warmth lacks fire. Ooo feels their absence as much as... For the heart of Adventure Time was never only about saving kingdom. It was about the way their bond turned even the strangest quests into stories of love and laughter. Without it, the stories exist, but they are lonelier, colder, less alive. Symbolically, this bedtime imagining speaks softly of the power of companionship. It reminds us that even the strongest fire needs a hearth to keep it steady, and even the coziest hearth needs a flame to give it purpose. Finn without Jake still fights, but his courage hardens into solitude. Jake without Finn still smiles, but his joy drifts without direction. Only together do they create the warmth that lit Oo's nights. As you rest with this vision, you may hear the difference. In the true story, their voices echo together, Finn shouting with excitement, Jake chuckling in reply. The air is filled with harmony, with balance, with play. In this world, you hear them separately, a boy shouting into silence, a dog chuckling to him. The sounds are still there, but the music is missing. And in that missing note, we begin to understand why their meeting was not just chance, but destiny. If we let time move further in this imagining, we find that Oo's greatest adventures play out differently, their shapes bent by the missing bond of Finn and Jake. Consider the Lich. In the true story, the boy and the dog stood against him, their courage and loyalty entwined, their teamwork unyielding. But here, when the Lich rises, Finn is there alone. His sword still strikes, his courage still burns, but he faces the embodiment of death without Jake's balance. He fights fiercely, yet his choices are sharper, more desperate. Without Jake pulling him back from reckless cliffs, Finn throws himself into danger with abandon, and his victories feel less like triumphs and more like survival. He may still stop the Lich, but at greater cost, wounds heavier, scars deeper, his heart weighed down by the loneliness of victory unshared. And Jake? In this timeline, he is nowhere near the battle. He naps in a meadow, unaware of the fate unfolding. He laughs with friends, stretches lazily, perhaps sings a quiet tune. He is safe, but he is absent. When he hears whispers later of the human hero who fought death itself, he nods with admiration but feels no connection. He does not know that the boy in those tales might have been his brother. Bubblegum's reign also changes under this path. Without Finn and Jake to rush to her side, her kingdom leans more heavily on its armies and science. She becomes even more of a ruler and less of a friend, her heart hardening into calculation. Without Finn's earnest admiration and Jake's playful humor, she is left with fewer reminders of her own humanity. Her bond with Marceline remains, yes, but it is slower to thaw, for it lacks the gentle nudges that Finn and Jake's presence once brought. Their absence creates a candy kingdom that is safer, perhaps, but colder. And Marceline herself drifts further into solitude. She plays her bass across empty landscapes, her songs echoing against stone and snow. In the true story, her laughter was coaxed out by Finn and Jake's antics, her heart softened by their acceptance. Here, those moments do not come. She still loves, still mourns, still sings, but her music is heavier, less playful, more sorrowful. Without their companionship, her songs become the soundtrack of solitude rather than the chorus of friendship. Even Ice King's tale is lonelier. He remains a sad, bumbling figure, but with no Finn and Jake constantly colliding with his schemes, he falls further into isolation. His kidnappings are met with indifference, his ramblings with silence. He becomes more ghost than king, fading into the background of Oo's story. Without Finn's curiosity and Jake's reluctant patience, the layers of Simon Petrikov's tragedy remain hidden. Oo never learns the full story of the man beneath the crown, and so his sorrow deepens unacknowledged. Symbolically, this bedtime imagining reveals the way bonds ripple outward, touching not just the ones bound together, but everyone around them. Finn and Jake together softened Bubblegum, drew Marceline into friendship, exposed the humanity in Ice King. Their laughter carried into every corner of Oo, creating echoes of joy that others leaned upon. Without it, Oo's stories still unfold, but they are heavier, quieter, lonelier. And Finn himself, though still brave, grows older with a different weight. Without Jake by his side, he matures faster, his innocence burned away by solitude. He does not shout mathematical into the night sky, does not laugh at silly songs while resting under the stars. Instead, he walks heavier steps, his victories carved from grit rather than play. He becomes a legend, yes, but his legend is a colder one, the tale of a lone human who faced monsters and won, but who returned each night to silence. Jake, in turn, never reaches the depths of his potential. His powers remain, but they are used for small joys stretching to amuse, to entertain, to relax. Without Finn's constant call to adventure, his life drifts gently, comfortably, but without shape. He is beloved, but never legendary. He smiles, but his smile is shallower. He lives, but he does not truly grow. This bedtime fable, then, offers a different kind of sadness than Golb's silence or Marceline's frost. It is the sadness not of loss, but of absence, the sadness of what never was. Finn and Jake live, but apart, their lives smaller, their joys dimmer, their stories less alive. Oo still turns, still thrives, still trembles with magic and mystery. But without their bond, It lacks its heartbeat. As you drift with this imagining, you can almost hear the difference. In the true ooh, the sound of Finn and Jake's laughter rings across valleys, bouncing from forest to mountain to sea. In this ooh, there is no such echo. Finn's shouts end in silence. Jake's chuckles vanish into the air. The land is quieter, not because of catastrophe, but because the harmony never began. And in that quiet, we learn just how precious their meeting truly was. As we near the end of this final fable, let us pause to reflect on what it means for two lives never to cross. For in the true story, Finn and Jake's meeting was not only chance, it was destiny. A boy abandoned in the woods, a magical dog born with power, two souls who might have lived separately but instead found one another. And in that finding, ooh itself was changed. Without their bond, as we have seen, the land is lonelier, and the stories colder, the adventures harder. But when they meet, when their laughter and loyalty intertwine, ooh becomes something greater. Their bond does more than save kingdom or defeat villain. It softens hearts, builds bridges, turns sorrow into song. It transforms the land of ruins into a land of adventure, a land where friendship is the strongest magic of all. In this bedtime imagining, Finn without Jake becomes a hero, but one weighed by solitude. Jake without Finn becomes a drifter, smiling but shallow in his joy. But together, they become whole. Finn's fire burns brighter because Jake steadies it. Jake's warmth deepens because Finn challenges it. Their voices together create the harmony that gives ooh its soul. Symbolically, this final what-if is perhaps the gentlest lesson of all. It reminds us that life is not only about what we do, but about who we share it with. Courage is noble, but it grows richer when paired with loyalty. Joy is sweet, but it becomes lasting when shaped by responsibility. Finn and Jake's story shows us that companionship can turn even the strangest, scariest, most magical world into a home. Now, sleepyheads, picture the difference one last time. In the true ooh, Finn and Jake walk side by side, their shadows stretching together across the land. They laugh, they bicker, they sing silly songs, they save the day, and they rest beneath the stars. Their presence ripples outward, touching everyone they meet, weaving joy and love into every corner of ooh. Without them, the land is still alive, but it is quieter, less whole. With them, ooh shines. With them, it becomes a story we know and love. And so this final fable closes, not with sorrow, but with gratitude. Gratitude that in the true telling, the boy and the dog did meet, that their bond carried them through battles and laughter, through endings and beginnings, that their story was told, and in being told, it became part of us. We have wandered tonight through many shapes of ooh, a world without war, a land without magic, a Simon who never wore the crown, a Marceline who bore it herself, a Golb who triumphed, and finally a boy and a dog who never met. Each fable showed us something different: peace, sorrow, silence, absence. But altogether, they remind us why the true story matters so deeply. Because it was not only a tale of magic and monsters, crowns and chaos. It was a tale of love, friendship, sacrifice, and the enduring warmth of connection. As you lie in your bed, eyes heavy, heart quiet, let these fables settle like soft snow. Let them remind you, every bond you cherish, every laugh you share, every story you live, carries meaning that cannot be unmade. For even in the darkest what-ifs, the light of love and friendship shines through. And now, sleepyheads, our wandering ends. The lantern of tonight's tale grows dim. The pages close softly. Outside, the stars keep their watch, and the night hums with gentle stillness. May your dreams be filled with songs, with laughter, with the warmth of friends walking beside you. Good night.